All right, welcome in everyone. Sorry I can't be with you live. Doing testing, you know how it goes. But we'll do the questions of the day right here and get you going. All right, it says when the Soviet Union attempted to install nuclear weapons in Cuba, President Kennedy ordered A naval quarantine of that island, B, surgical airstrikes on the missile sites, C, the invasion of Cuba at the Bay of Pigs, or D, resumption of atmospheric testing of nuclear weapons. I'll give you a moment to think about it and tell you that in the midst of this, both A and B were very much being considered, and they were going back and forth as to what was the right call, and ultimately decided that a naval quarantine of that island, was the way to go, fearing that by choosing the airstrikes, that would set forth and put in motion a nuclear war. And in all likelihood, it would have. And we wouldn't be here today if that were the case. So we're thankful and happy that it turned out that way. The military personnel that was advising President Kennedy was pushing for the airstrikes. But there was also concern behind that of could they get them all? And could they get them all in time before weapons were fired off? So these were all things that were considered and worried about during this Cuban Missile Crisis, which lasted 13 days in October of 1962, when really the world was on edge as to what was going to happen and how it was going to play out, and everybody's life was at stake. So it was definitely big stuff, high tension. Now we come to this phase as to how did we get to it, mainly because when the Cuban Revolution takes place in the 1950s, it's going to bring a guy by the name of Fidel Castro into power. And Castro is going to be a communist and no friend of the United States. So the United States is going to go through plans trying to remove him. A failed attempt at the Bay of Pigs is going to then lead to increased tensions between the United States and Cuba. Meanwhile, Cuba is getting support and help economically and militarily from the Soviet Union. Well, this is a problem. One, it's containment clearly hasn't worked since communism has spread, but the even more fearful part is that communism has spread to right next to the United States, because Cuba is 90 miles south of the United States, right there in Florida. So this tactical advantage that the Soviets had by having Cuba right there and able to potentially attack the United States, was real cause for concern and very dangerous. So it was secret missions from U.S. military taking pictures in Cuba and spying that caught these missiles and led to this standoff. Basically, the United States calling out the Soviets for doing this, and then ultimately working things out so that the Soviets would remove the missiles from Cuba when it was all said and done, and we agreed to remove them from over in Turkey, thus avoiding what could have been really, really terrible. All right. So that's that. As far as your other questions there, describe a situation where avoiding violence or a fight is the right thing to do. How did you do that successfully? That's a question and a challenge we all have. I mean, I think it's something we strive to do and would want to do. Unfortunately, taking it back to history in the United States' case, maybe going to war, maybe using the military and an attack was potentially even the easier thing to do. Ultimately, didn't want to inflict that kind of damage on the world as a whole, and so worked out through diplomacy and negotiating and trading essentially to work our way out of it. So hopefully you have an example of that, and looking forward to reading that in your answers to it.